The War Council chamber smelled like ozone and disappointment. Captain Ryan Dunn watched the holographic display flicker through reconnaissance images of the raider base, while the Galactic Council's military advisors debated tactics with the enthusiasm of academics discussing ancient history. 12 species represented, each one contributing another layer of bureaucratic caution to what should have been a straightforward direct action mission. The Cravathi Syndicate has fortified this position for cycles. The Thalanite commander, Vrelnak, gestured with 3 of his 4 arms at the projected stronghold. Our intelligence suggests a minimum occupation period of 30 planetary rotations to properly reduce their defenses. Dunn caught the eye of his second-in-command, Master Sergeant David Callahan, who stood with the rest of their 8-man Universal Soldier team along the chamber's back wall. Callahan's scarred face remained impassive, but his fingers drummed once against his thigh. Their private signal for this is bullshit. Captain Dunn, the Council's military coordinator, a silver-skinned Valorian named Schrenkel, fixed her large eyes on him. Your assessment? Dunn stood, his boots clicking against the polished floor as he approached the display. He studied the compound for exactly 5 seconds. 36 hours, ma'am. We'll have the facility secured and your high-value targets ready for transport by then. The chamber erupted, not with excitement, but with the multitonal cacophony of a dozen species expressing disbelief. Vrelnak's mandibles clacked in what Dunn had learned to recognize as dismissive laughter. Impossible, the Thalanite said. My shock troops who train for 10 cycles would require extensive artillery support, orbital bombardment clearance, and armored division reinforcement for such an assault. With respect, Commander, Dunn pulled up the compound's structural data with a swipe of his hand. Your shock troops aren't us. Schrenkel raised one slender hand, silencing the protests. Explain your confidence, Captain. Dunn highlighted 3 sections of the base. Their defensive perimeter is designed to repel conventional assault forces. Predictable approach vectors, overlapping fields of fire, hardened positions. They're expecting you to come at them the way you've always done it, loud, slow, and by the numbers. He zoomed in on the facility's power distribution network. They're not ready for us. And if you're wrong, Vrelnak challenged, then you'll have 30 days to say you told us so. The Council's supreme military director, a hulking Drachner named Gorzeth, leaned forward in his seat. His species had ruled the Council's military arm for generations, and his expression suggested he found Dunn's youth and humanity equally offensive. Very well, Gorzeth rumbled. You will deploy with Commander Vrelnak's Storm Guard. They will provide heavy support and ensure proper military protocols are observed. Dunn nodded. We appreciate the backup, sir. 48 hours later, Dunn crouched in the cargo bay of the assault ship Tempest's Edge, checking his rifle for the 3rd time. Around him, his team conducted their pre-mission rituals with the practiced efficiency of operators who'd worked together through hell and back. Sergeant First Class Aaron Mitchell, their breacher, assembled shaped charges with the care of a surgeon. Staff Sergeant Luis Rodriguez adjusted his ballistic shield's power cell. The rest of their element, Hayes, Cooper, Park, Bennett, and Callahan, moved through their preparations like a deadly orchestra warming up. The Storm Guard occupied the bay's opposite side, 20 Thalanite warriors in powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. They watched the humans with barely concealed amusement. Vrelnak approached Dunn, his combat armor whirring softly. My troops are curious about your equipment, Captain. Your armor seems rather light for an assault of this magnitude. Dunn glanced down at his adaptive combat suit. Compared to the Storm Guard's hulking powered armor, the humans looked almost casual in their gear. Different philosophy, Commander. We move fast, hit hard, and don't plan on getting hit back. Confidence or foolishness, Vrelnak said. We shall discover which. The ship's AI announced their approach vector. Dunn pulled up the mission brief on his wrist display one final time. The Cravathi Syndicate had been raiding shipping lanes and colony worlds for months, always staying one step ahead of the Council's ponderous military response. Intelligence placed at least 2 high-value targets in the compound below Syndicate lieutenants who could provide information on the organization's leadership. Listen up, Dunn addressed his team. Rules of engagement is tight. We want prisoners, but direct assault is authorized. Mitchell, you're on point with Rodriguez. Park and Bennett, you're with them on Alpha entry. Hayes and Cooper, you've got Beta. Callahan, you're with me on Overwatch. These guys are slavers and murderers. Anyone holding a weapon is hostile. Anyone trying to surrender gets zip-tied and processed. Anyone in between, you make the call. The Tempest's edge shuddered as it entered the atmosphere. Through the bay's viewports, Dunn watched the target planet's surface resolve from abstract patterns into terrain features. The Raider compound sat in a valley, surrounded by rocky hills that provided natural defensive advantages. Vrelnak consulted with his officers, then approached Dunn again. "Captain, my tactical analysis suggests we establish a forward operating base on the northern ridge, then conduct a systematic advance with artillery preparation." "Negative, Commander. We're hitting them in 90 seconds. Fast insertion, maximum violence of action, exploit their surprise before they can organize a defense." The Thalonite's mandibles clicked in agitation. "This deviates from approved tactical doctrine." "With respect, sir, you're welcome to follow your doctrine. We'll clear the compound, then you can roll in and secure the perimeter." The ship's AI began the 30-second countdown. Dunn's team moved to the drop doors with the synchronized precision of dozens of missions together. The Storm Guards scrambled to adjust their formation, clearly not expecting such an immediate deployment. The bay doors opened, and gravity pulled Dunn into free fall. The ground rushed up at terminal velocity, while his suit's anti-grav systems calculated the optimal deceleration curve. Around him, his team fell in a loose diamond formation, weapons ready. Dunn pulled up hard at 200 feet, his suit's compensators killing his momentum in a gut-wrenching deceleration. He touched down soft, weapon up, scanning the compound's outer wall. Mitchell and Rodriguez landed 5 meters to his left, already moving toward their breach point. The Cravathi guards never knew what hit them. Mitchell's breaching charge blew the wall section inward with a shaped explosion that left the surrounding structure intact. Rodriguez pushed through the opening, his shield absorbing the first wild burst of enemy fire, while Mitchell put down 2 guards with controlled pairs from his rifle. Dunn dropped the guard in the nearest watchtower with a single headshot, then moved toward the compound's main structure. His tactical display showed his team flowing through the facility like water, finding every crack, every weakness in the defenses. The Cravathi weren't pushovers. They were experienced raiders, hardened by countless battles. But they fought like individuals, each one making decisions in isolation. Dunn's team fought like a single organism with 8 deadly appendages. Park and Bennett breached the barracks, flashbangs turning the interior into a confusion of light and sound before they swept through with mechanical efficiency. Hostiles dropped. Survivors found themselves face down and zip-tied before they understood what had happened. Hayes and Cooper cleared the command center, their suppressed weapons barely audible as they neutralized the guards and secured what looked like the facility's second-in-command. Cooper's voice crackled over the team channel. "HVT-2 secure. Package is cooperating." Dunn moved through the compound's main courtyard, Callahan materializing at his 6 like a ghost. More Cravathi poured from the central structure, their reptilian features twisted in rage as they realized their fortress was being torn apart. A burst of plasma fire scorched past Dunn's head. He pivoted, acquired the shooter, and put him down. Callahan engaged 2 more guards attempting to flank them, his marksmanship turning a 2-on-2 into a cleanup operation in 3 seconds flat. "Central structure moving," Dunn called out. He hit the main building's entrance at a run, his suit's strength enhancements letting him tear the locked door off its hinges. The interior corridor stretched ahead, doors lining both sides. Intelligence suggested HVT-1, the facility's commander, would be in the operations center at the corridor's end. Dunn didn't bother with stealth. He sprinted down the hallway, trusting his reflexes and armor to handle any threats. A door opened to his left, and he engaged without breaking stride, his weapon tracking to the target before his conscious mind registered the threat. The operations center's doors were reinforced. Dunn planted a charge while Callahan covered their 6. The explosion blew the doors inward, and they flowed through the smoke into a room full of hostile contacts. The next 10 seconds were pure controlled chaos. Dunn engaged the guards on the left while Callahan took the right. Their weapons barked in a synchronized rhythm, each shot placed with precision born from thousands of hours of training and real-world experience that made most of the galaxy's elite forces look like weekend warriors. The Cravathi commander, a massive specimen with battle scars covering his scaled hide, roared and charged Dunn with a plasma blade. Dunn sidestepped, letting the alien's momentum carry him past, then swept his legs and put him face first into the floor. A knee in the spine and zip ties around his wrists ended the fight. "HVT-1 secure," Dunn reported. "Facility is ours. Rodriguez, what's our count?" 23 hostiles down, 16 prisoners including your 2 packages. 0 friendly casualties. Dunn checked his watch. 38 minutes had elapsed since insertion. Outside, the Tempest's edge settled onto the compound's landing pad. The Storm Guard finally disembarked, their powered armor thundering as they advanced toward a battle that had already ended. Vrelnak surveyed the scene with all 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. His troops began the laborious process of securing a facility that Dunn's team had already cleared, tagged, and catalogued. Impossible, the Thalanite commander said, his translator struggling with whatever emotion colored his voice. You could not have cleared a fortified position of this size in under an hour. Dunn pulled off his helmet, his face slicked with sweat. We didn't clear it in under an hour, Commander. We cleared it in 38 minutes. The rest of the time we were just making sure we hadn't missed anyone. Mitchell approached with the 2 high-value targets in tow, their hands bound and expressions sullen. Packages ready for transport, Captain. They weren't happy about being interrupted during dinner, but they'll survive. Gorzeth's voice boomed from the ship's communication system. Captain Dunn, explain your casualties. 0 wounded, 0 killed, sir. A long pause followed. That's impossible. So we've been told, sir. Vrelnak approached Dunn again, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by something that might have been respect. I owe you an apology, Captain. My assumptions about your capabilities were flawed. No apology necessary, Commander. Different species, different approaches. Your troops are built for sustained operations and holding ground. We're built for speed and precision. This facility would have taken my forces weeks to reduce, Vrelnak said. With significant casualties, you accomplished it in less time than we needed to deploy from our ship. Dunn shrugged. We've had practice. Earth's been fighting wars since before we had written language. We've gotten pretty good at it. The extraction went smoothly. The Storm Guard established a perimeter while Dunn's team processed prisoners and secured intelligence materials from the operations center. By the time the sun set on the target planet, the entire raider facility had been cataloged, its inhabitants either dead or detained, and 2 high-value targets were en route to Council interrogation facilities. Back aboard the Tempest's Edge, Dunn found his team in the armory, breaking down their weapons and conducting after-action maintenance. The ritual of cleaning, checking, and restoring their equipment gave them time to decompress from the mission's adrenaline. Think the Council learned anything today? Hayes asked, running a cleaning rod through his rifle's barrel. They learned we're expensive, Callahan said. That's about it, Rodriguez laughed. They're gonna want us for every job now. Wait and see. Dunn knew Rodriguez was right. The Universal Soldier Program had been Earth's entry ticket to the Galactic Council's military structure, a way to prove that humanity could contribute despite being one of the younger species in galactic politics. But what the Council saw as Earth's contribution, Dunn saw as just another deployment in humanity's long history of fighting its way through impossible situations. Schrenkel entered the armory, her silver skin reflecting the overhead lights. Captain Dunn, the Council's military directorate wishes to speak with you. Let me guess, Dunn said. They want to know how we did it. They want to know if you can do it again. Dunn exchanged glances with his team. Callahan grinned. Mitchell shrugged. Park gave him a thumbs up. Tell them we're ready when they are, Dunn said. But next time maybe they'll trust us enough to let us work without the backup. Schrenkel's large eyes blinked slowly. I suspect next time, Captain, they will be asking the backup to stay out of your way. After she left, Hayes voiced what they were all thinking. We just rewrote their entire tactical doctrine in one afternoon. No, Dunn corrected. We just showed them what humans have always known. The best way to win a fight is to make sure the other guy never sees you coming, hit harder than they think possible, and be gone before they figure out what happened. Speed, surprise, and violence of action, Mitchell said, reciting one of their training mantras. And overwhelming competence, Rodriguez added. Dunn finished cleaning his weapon and locked it into its case. Through the armory's viewport, he could see the target planet shrinking as they broke orbit. Somewhere down there, the Storm Guard was probably still trying to understand how 8 humans had done in minutes what 20 Thalanite warriors would have needed weeks to accomplish. The answer was simple, really. Humans didn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. They didn't approach warfare as a noble endeavor or a test of martial prowess. They approached it as a problem to be solved with maximum efficiency and minimum waste. Some species had evolved as predators. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters, tracking prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Some species had developed weapons as tools of honor. Humans had developed weapons as tools of survival, then spent millennia refining them into instruments of precise lethality. Dunn closed his equipment case and headed for the crew quarters. Tomorrow would bring new briefings, new missions, new challenges. The Galactic Council now knew what human operators could do, and that knowledge would reshape how the galaxy approached warfare. But tonight, Dunn and his team had earned their rest. They'd proven once again that when Earth sent its best, the galaxy's worst didn't stand a chance. The War Council had expected a month-long siege. They'd gotten a 38-minute masterclass in human warfare instead. And across the galaxy, the raiders, pirates, and warlords who'd grown comfortable preying on the Council's slow-moving military machine were about to learn a hard lesson. Earth had joined the fight, and humanity's warriors brought with them 10,000 years of experience in turning impossible odds into inevitable victories. The price of certainty, Dunn thought as sleep claimed him, was always paid by those foolish enough to underestimate what humans could do when the mission demanded excellence. The Galactic Council had wanted a test. Earth's soldiers had given them an education. 6 months after the Cravathi Syndicate operation, Captain Ryan Dunn stood in a training facility that hadn't existed when his team first proved what human operators could accomplish. The Galactic Combat Training Center occupied an entire moon, its surface transformed into every conceivable combat environment. Desert, urban, jungle, Arctic, orbital. Each zone replicated the conditions where the Council's forces might need to operate, and each zone now hosted mixed teams of aliens learning to fight the human way. Dunn watched Sergeant First Class Aaron Mitchell demonstrate close-quarters battle techniques to a squad of Thalanite storm guards. The massive aliens moved through the kill house with surprising grace, their earlier contempt replaced by intense focus. Mitchell called corrections, adjusted their stacking positions, and ran them through the course again. "Faster transitions," Mitchell barked. "You're thinking about each movement. Stop thinking." Commander Vrelnak approached Dunn, his 4 arms carrying data tablets displaying performance metrics. "Your sergeant is merciless. He's effective. Your troops have cut their room-clearing time by 60%. Dunn nodded. The Council had been skeptical at first, treating the Universal soldiers as a novelty. Then the missions started coming. Hostage rescue on a mining station. 4 hours instead of the projected 2 weeks. Counter-piracy operation in the Outer Rim. 3 days to dismantle what intelligence estimated would take months. High-value target extraction from a separatist compound. 90 minutes, 0 casualties. After the 8th consecutive success, Gorzath had summoned Dunn to council chambers and made an admission that must have cost the proud Drachner considerable effort. Humanity's approach to warfare was fundamentally superior for rapid response operations. The Universal Soldier Program expanded. Dunn's 8-man team became the nucleus for a new doctrine that spread through the Council's military structure like wildfire. Now 30 human operators trained with elite units from a dozen species, teaching them to think like humans, move like humans, fight like humans. Staff Sergeant Luis Rodriguez emerged from the urban warfare complex with a mixed team of Valorian shock troops. The silver-skinned aliens looked exhausted but exhilarated. Rodriguez himself barely looked winded. "How'd they do?" Dunn asked. "Outstanding. They're starting to anticipate instead of react. Give them another month and they'll be running operations independently." Rodriguez grinned. "Though they still think we're crazy for not using heavier armor." "Speed over protection," Dunn said, repeating the mantra that had become gospel in the new training doctrine. "Speaking of operations," Rodriguez continued, "we've got mission tasking, smuggling ring operating out of the Helios sector. Council wants us to take a composite team, 4 of ours, 6 Valorians, 4 Thalanites." Dunn raised an eyebrow. "They're giving us mixed units for real-world operations now?" Schrenkel approved it personally. Says the integrated teams need field experience under human leadership. 3 weeks later, Dunn crouched in darkness aboard a smuggler's freighter, his composite team positioned throughout the ship. The operation targeted a trafficking network that moved illegal weapons and worse, sentient beings sold as slaves. To his left, a Thalanite warrior named Krevnal waited with the patience Mitchell had drilled into him. To his right, 2 Valorian operators maintained perfect noise discipline. Behind them, Master Sergeant David Callahan led the second element with a Thalanite and 2 more Valorians. The raid went flawlessly. Dunn's team moved through the ship with the precision of a blade, cutting through the smugglers' security forces and securing the cargo holds, where they found 23 kidnapping victims from 4 different species. The smugglers never had time to organize resistance. 17 minutes after insertion, the freighter was secure. Krevnal approached Dunn in the aftermath, his mandibles clicking in what Dunn had learned to recognize as satisfaction. "Captain, I understand now what Commander Vrelnak meant. Moving like this, fighting like this, it feels like being part of something greater than individual prowess." "That's the whole point," Dunn said. "We're not trying to be heroes. We're trying to complete the mission and go home alive." Back at the training center, Dunn found his original team gathered in their briefing room. Mitchell, Rodriguez, Hayes, Cooper, Park, Bennett, and Callahan, the 8 operators who'd started this revolution in galactic warfare. "Command wants us to expand again," Callahan said, pulling up deployment orders. "They're proposing 5 more training cadres, each built around a core of human operators. We'd be training battalion-strength forces within a year." Hayes whistled. "That's a lot of aliens learning to think like humans." "It's necessary," Dunn said. "The Council's been fighting wars the same way for centuries, methodical, ponderous, predictable. The galaxy's threats have adapted to that. Pirates, raiders, smugglers, they've all learned to exploit the Council's slow response times." "And now we're changing the equation," Park said. "Exactly. We're not trying to make them into humans. We're teaching them to approach problems the way we do, find the fastest solution, execute with precision, adapt when things go wrong." Mitchell leaned back in his chair. "Think it'll stick? After we're gone, will they keep fighting this way?" Dunn considered the question. Over the past 6 months, he'd watched alien warriors transform their entire approach to combat. He'd seen species that had been rivals learn to operate as seamless units. He'd watched the Council's military structure evolve from a collection of separate forces into something approaching Earth's joint operations doctrine. "It'll stick," Dunn said, "because it works, and because we're not just teaching them tactics, we're teaching them mindset, speed, adaptability, violence of action. Those principles don't change regardless of what species applies them." Rodriguez pulled up after-action reports from the smuggler raid. "The Valorians are requesting permanent assignment to human-led units. So are 3 Thalanite companies. Even some Drachner units are inquiring about integration training." "Gorzith must love that," Callahan said with a smirk. "Gorzith signed the authorization personally," Dunn replied. "He told Schrenkel that pride was less important than victory." The room fell quiet. Coming from the Supreme Military Director, that admission represented a seismic shift in the Council's military culture. Dunn stood and walked to the viewport overlooking the training grounds. Below, mixed teams ran through exercises that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Aliens from species that had never truly cooperated moved with synchronized precision, applying human tactics to their own unique capabilities. The Universal Soldier program had evolved beyond its original mission. Earth hadn't just contributed forces to the Council's military, it had fundamentally changed how the galaxy approached warfare. And in doing so, humanity had secured its place not as junior members of galactic civilization, but as the architects of its defense. "Get some rest," Dunn told his team. "Tomorrow we start training the next wave." As his operators filed out, Dunn remained at the viewport, watching the sun set over the training grounds. Somewhere out there, the galaxy's threats continued their operations. But now, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had forces capable of responding with the speed and precision those threats couldn't match. Earth's warriors had taught the galaxy a new way to fight, and the galaxy would never be the same.